Namaskar. Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched Swachh Bharat mission on 2nd of October 2014. Well, it's been more than half a decade, and India has already been recognized as the global sanitation leader. Well, this very special episode of DD Dialogue, or Independence Day special, wherein we talk about India at 74, is dedicated to this very national goal. We are talking about Swachh Bharat mission, and in the next half an hour, 1 hour or so, we're going to talk about how the mission has actually evolved as a game changer. When we talk about this being accorded the top priority as the national goal, we'll talk about the uniqueness, the distinctiveness of Swachh Bharat mission, and also we have also seen some large-scale transformations. But most importantly, when we speak about the way ahead, the road ahead, sustainability and challenges will be also something we will be examining today in this very, very special episode. And why I'm saying this DD Dialogue is episode is special, because we are joined in this episode very, very distinguished panelists. We have with us Mr. Parmeshwaran Iyer, the man at the helm of affairs. Thank you very much for joining us, Secretary, Ministry of Drinking Water, Sanitation, and somebody who has actually single-handedly made this top priority into a national goal or a national movement, many would say that. And also Mr. Amitabh Kant, very honored to have you on the show today. CEO, Niti Aayog, an extremely significant cornerstone, whenever we talk about Swachh Bharat mission, and very, very glad to have on DD Dialogue today Ms. Naina Lal Kidwai, who doesn't need an introduction. Padma Shri Naina Lal Kidwai, former CEO HSBC India, banker, and most importantly, viewers, she's the founding chair of India Sanitation Coalition, and also, of course, former President Fecal. And very, very delighted to have all the way from south of France, we have Nicholas Osbert, UNICEF Sanitation Chief, UNICEF India Sanitation Chief, and he's also going to do some tough answering today, rather tough questioning. And I'm going to quickly hand this first question over to Parmeshwaran sir, because when you look back, examining the entire 5 years tenure plus, critically looking back, many would say that this long-term transformation governance that we have seen, Swachh Bharat mission is going up the ladder. You've been at the top. You continue to relentlessly work when it comes to construction of toilets, millions and millions of it across the country. Are you a happy man today? Unfinished agenda, how do you look back?
No, I think that, as the Prime Minister keeps saying, it's never really mission accomplished. We've got to keep working at it. But when Prime Minister Modi triggered this revolution in that famous speech on 15th August 2014, when he spoke about toilets, indignity of women and girls who had to defecate in the open, and challenged the nation to rise to the occasion, make it a Jan Andolan, and make the country Swachh by the time of the 150th birth anniversary of Gandhiji. I think that was a tipping point. And as we say, the 4 Ps, the first is political leadership. So that was the wind at our back. We all had to align with that vision. And then, we started working with the states. Sanitation is a state subject, and aligned it all the way down to the grassroots level. And in the end, it became a people's revolution, I would say. It became a Jan Andolan, people adopted the program. And the key part was behavior change.
Yes, absolutely.
We also happened to build, 10 crore toilets. But the key part of the program was changing the behavior of people.
And that changing behavioral changes, inducing, Mr. Kant, the behavioral changes, you've always maintained. I was going through many papers that you've written on Swachh Bharat mission, your interviews, etc. You've emphasized on all hands on deck approach, and you've always said that this all hands on deck approach has actually played a vital role. How the centralized bureaucracy also pitched in, it's played a vital role when it comes to the greater achievements at the end of 5 years when we talk about Swachh Bharat mission.
See, I'd gone to a village called Wajidpur in Firozabad district of UP. And I'd gone with Mr. Iyer to clean up a twin pit toilet. And, so after 5 years, you can clean it up and actually convert the excreta into a organic compost. And it was really nice because the whole village was involved in this. And there was and there was a toilet parliament which the village had held that
Okay.
day. And one of the things which the entire village committed to was that none of them will do open defecation, and that they, in the parliament, they decided that there will be a penal provision which the community will put on any member who does open defecation. So what it demonstrated to me was that there was a huge community participation.
Yes,
There was
yes.
a community pressure. And second thing was that if we need to succeed in this, we need to convert this into people's participation. And also that eventually this entire Swachh Bharat movement has to have an economic dimension.
You talked about economic dimensions, and then also comes that important point of economic opportunities.
Yeah.
It's actually led to plethora of economic opportunities, and I think in the coming time, it's only going to escalate. Very briefly before I go to Ms. Kidwai.
Yeah. There's a huge opportunity because in the long run, it's not about just doing a movement and everybody participating and that we've created toilets in the long run, but there has to be a behavioral change, and that is what has been attempted through this program. So why this has been one of the most successful programs is because it's not about hardware, it's about the softer element.
Sure. So, Ms. Kidwai, as reiterated by Amitabh sir, this has gone much beyond cleanliness campaign. We're talking about Swachh Bharat Mission. You have written extensively in your book, Survive or Sink, Action Agenda for Sanitation and Green Finance. I mean, that's very interesting. How do you connect the economic revolution, Swachh Bharat mission, it's trickling down positive impact in other spheres? Quick remarks on that before we talk about the impact on women by and large.
Yeah. So if you look at the economic impact, one of the key areas which we have been pushing, but let me tell you, it isn't easy, is currently in the treatment space, where the model that India is embarking on rightly is to leave behind the typical Western model of large sewage plants, which take forever to build and are really quite costly, and have left us in a situation where very few of our cities even treat 50% of the sewage. It's typically much, much lower. Two, a much more distributed treatment in what are smaller sewage treatment plants. And in fact, there are states which have bid out for these. The issue really is that we have to create an eco-environment by which companies that bid feel comfortable. Typically, these bids are put out by municipalities, and dealings with municipalities have not been easy for the MSME sectors, which have typically bid for these. So what we have to show is that the sanctity of contract, the dealing with the municipality in terms of payments on time happening, and often the issue is really getting the clearance for the payment.
So ease of doing business part, right?
Absolutely. And ease of doing business with what is a single buyer here, which is a municipality.
So what is government doing, Parmeshwar and Iyer sir, to narrow the gap, empower states to see to it that the mission, the action plan is implemented? I'm going to take that question with you, but Nicholas, I'm going to quickly come to you. What do you think has been the largest impact of the mission here in India? How do you evaluate it? And most importantly, what do you think has been India's advantage when it comes to we being seen globally under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi as a sanitation leader, a global sanitation leader?
All right. So yeah, in UNICEF, we are quite independent, and we carried out several independent evaluations of the impact of the Swachh Bharat mission. I'm going to quote a few of them. So on the economic side, we saw that for any individual household living in an open defecation-free environment, there is a saving of 50,000 rupees per year, thanks to medical costs averted, time saved, and life saved. So that's a major impact at the community level. Now, at the macro level, looking at the whole of India, this mission alone had a big impact. So we calculated that there was an equivalent of 7.5 million full-time equivalent jobs created during the Swachh Bharat mission, full-time, yes, and saving an overall economic impact worth 6 points of India's GDP. Again, in terms of saving, time saved, and cost averted because of improved sanitation, and so that's a major impact. Now we also saw an impact in terms of protecting the environment. We could compare open defecation-free villages with villages where open defecation is still practiced, and we could see that water was much less contaminated, sometimes 12 times less contaminated in a place which is open defecation free. So that also has a major impact on the environment.
Okay, so the numbers look great, Parameshwaran Nairji. How did you manage to do this, you and your team? And is there any monitoring mechanism to verify these numbers, check these numbers?
Sure. So first of all, let me say that, this was done in partnership. Phenomenal support and guidance from Amitabh and the Niti Aayog, particularly to make our monitoring more rigorous. NENA and the India Sanitation Coalition support all through in terms of capacity building. And of course, Nicola and UNICEF, one of our most steadfast partners. On the point you've mentioned, we developed, along with the help of Niti, a national annual rural sanitation survey under the World Bank project, which is an independent verification agency. And every year they would carry out a huge third-party survey of more than 100,000 households, 6,000 villages. And in all these cases, they found that, importantly, the usage of toilets was more than 90%. There's quite a rigorous process for measuring and verifying open defecation-free villages through third party. So we're very confident that the results are there for see. But of course, as was mentioned, it's very, very important to sustain this. And as the Prime Minister recently mentioned, when he launched our Rashtriya Swachhata Kendra a couple of days ago, which is a living experience of the Swachh Bharat mission, we are now moving from ODF to ODF plus. Yes. And very importantly, we're moving into a broader definition of sanitation. We will always focus on sustaining ODF through behavior change, through communication, through incentives, and through competition among states. But we're also moving on to solid and liquid waste management. One of the most significant sustainability initiatives taken by the Prime Minister has been, for the first time, under the 15th Finance Commission, specific funds have been earmarked for sanitation and water.
Okay, so Mr. Kant, role of states, do you think, taking a cue from what Mr. Parameshwaran has mentioned, there's a hike in the outlay and government is very clear that has accorded extreme priority to Swachh Bharat mission and its implementation. Do you think the engagement with states has to increase more on?
No, states have played a very critical and a significant role, and more than the states, I think the local gram panchayats and the districts, they've all been very active participants. We wouldn't have got the size, the scale, the sustainability, and this huge fight against stigma without their participation. So, the states which have been extremely successful or have all done this on the back of community participation. And that community participation has been possible because all the states have actively worked. There's been a ranking of the states on performance of sanitation. This was constantly put out. There's been a naming and shaming, and I think that has led everyone to actively participate. But more than anything else, I think the two critical things which have happened in this is that extension and mass communication has played a very key role. And that is because the Prime Minister talked about it repeatedly. And because the head of the country was speaking about it in such a big way, the fight against stigma was won.
Okay, Ms. Kidway, do you agree with Mr. Khan? And having said that, so are we now looking at a very different template? Because like we're saying that this has gone beyond cleanliness campaigns, it's become much bigger, much bigger. Urban India, rural India, you've been always maintaining that there is a difference in the response and approach, having said that.
So let me just start by saying and pick up on the point that Amitabh and Param have both made, in that the success of this campaign, whether it is at the ODF 1 or 2 level, at any campaign, is the way the center down to the states, down to the district level aligns on the one message. And this is a classic story where that happened because yes, the voice at the top, but that's not good enough. We had what was the spirit of competition that Amitabh alluded to, which was very well played. But down at the grassroots, there was a subsidy, you will remember, that was given for toilets. So it helped for the enactment of the actual toilet building. And between the spirit of competition, communication, financing, and in fact, we at the India Sanitation Coalition, with many of our partners, work with microfinance institutions to make sure that finance was available to build the toilets. So at every end, you have to make sure that there's something bridging those every part of that game.
Nicholas, your thoughts on it, because you agree that a large part of India is actually doing right, and there's very minuscule part left who have to be part of this national goal, or perhaps everybody is already part of this national goal. And having said that, UNICEF being the global development partner, how do you really look at India when you do this comparison, India versus rest of the world, especially in this domains, sanitation and the whole mission that we're talking about? We understand we are already global leaders, but there are other aspects also associated with it.
All right. I must admit, I mean, before joining India in January 2017, as many others, you know, India had a reputation to have hygiene issues and everybody knows about it. So everybody in the world globally was caught by surprise by the call of the Prime Minister to put sanitation on top of the political agenda. That was, it was very much inspiring. In many countries where I've worked, in Africa and other places, you have to beg for a little attention to sanitation. And you know about the impact it has on public health, but you have to beg for a bit of drive, political drive. So in India, it was the other way around, thanks to the drive of the Prime Minister. The second surprise, it's in October 2019. It's not the end of the battle. And that's very important. We heard from Mr. Iyer before, there is money injected. There is capacity development specifically targeting the GP level, the ward level, and the community level. So the fact that despite of the success that is undeniable, the fact that India is still investing politically with the budget on sanitation is really important for 5 more years, so that we don't lose all the gains of this massive investment.
That's a very huge statement coming in from UNICEF on the show, Mr. Parveshwaran.
To learn about Swachh Bharat, because the lessons from this program are starting to get translated across the world, East Asia as well. So we are doing a bit of technical assistance, and I think you know, all of them recognize the role of the political leadership, but also of public finance. That's equally important. Let's not forget that the government, center and states put in more than $20 billion, more than 1 lakh crores into this program as a sign of their commitment and investment in this high impact program. And then of course we had partnerships and people's participation, the 4 Ps. So, you know, and without India's success in this, I don't think the Sustainable Development Goal 6.2 could be achieved. So I think it's starting to be recognized. There's still a long way to go. And I think we must always recognize that we have to keep working at it. I think that's the message that the Prime Minister made a couple of days ago. He's been repeatedly making that statement. We have achieved a lot. We've achieved a milestone, but then there are still promises to keep.
And miles to go. We still have that long road to cover, Mr. Khan.
Yeah, I don't know how many miles. I think we have come,
so we've
come quite a long way, but there's still work to be done.
Yes, we've traveled so far. And Mr. Kant, your thoughts on the triggering, the trigger point when it comes to cutting the ice with grassroots. Specific, if you just now focus on rural India, lessons learned so far.
There are huge challenges, despite all the great work done, sustaining it on a long-term basis and changing behavior is a long-term challenge. And therefore, the pressure of the community must remain all the time. Without massive community participation, without extension, mass communication, without the energy of state governments constantly traveling to the villages and the districts and the center going there.
Are they doing it? Are they doing it? What's your assessment?
I think they're doing it. That's one bit of it. But the second bit is, as I'm stressing it again and again, the fecal sludge has to be converted into energy, fertilizer, briquettes, or you know, any other economic content And I think there's huge opportunity as we go along in building toilets, in maintaining and running them, in creating economic activity around them, because so far the corporate sector has been a participant in it as a part of their CSR activity.
Ms. Kidway can talk about that, ma'am. You being a banker yourself, I mean, is that a huge challenge?
Yes, well, we're struggling right now to find these models. I totally agree with Amitabh. If we can make this self-sustaining, but it's not easy. But any value creation, and fertilizer is clearly one that is already proven. Africa's using bricks for kitchen fires that are created from this excreta. So these examples are coming up. But I believe this is not enough. And I just also firmly believe that it is the role of government to ensure that the provision of this service happens. It is a public service. And it provided in the cities, people should pay for it. If the plants are large, there is a huge exercise which many of us are working on, and actually industry is embracing, which is the wastewater part of it. So where it's a large enough plant, utilization of the treated water, which can be used to power sector, can be used for fields, etc., is also happening. So any of the byproducts and value given therein is a way. But there are many cases where this service will not pay for itself. And that does not let government off the hook in terms of provision of the service, or us as citizens off the hook in terms of paying for the service. So all these models have to be looked at.
Okay, so are all these points factored in when we talk about the larger print of Swachhta Action Plan, Mr. Parmeshwaran? This is already part of the blueprint.
No, it absolutely is. So the cabinet recently approved Swachh Bharat Phase 2, which has 4 pillars. The first pillar will always be the sustaining of ODF, to make sure, as Amitabh has been repeatedly advising us, to make sure that the softer elements, the communication, the capacity building supported by UNICEF continues. After that, we have got 4 verticals. We have got solid waste management, organic waste management, which is all about converting the fecal waste and cattle waste into energy and slurry. Then we have got, along with that, plastic waste management. Even in rural India, plastic waste management is becoming a major issue. And then on liquid waste, we have 2 verticals. One is grey water management. Grey water is the water which comes out of the kitchen and out of bathing. And now, as you know, under the new Jal Jeevan mission, which we also manage, providing drinking water and a tap in every rural household, there'll be a lot of grey water coming out. That needs to be managed, treated lightly, and then used to recharge groundwater, even for agriculture. And fourthly, and last but not least, is fecal sludge management, what both Amitabh and Naina referred to.
Okay.
There are still a lot of septic tanks. How do we get that out, and how do we use it and convert it into energy and effectively dispose of it? All this is factored in. This is the major program which is being launched, and also community toilets, which the Prime Minister referred to, typically for migrant floating populations. Maintenance of that is going to be equally important. Can we go in for more and more pay and go models? All this is being worked upon.
Yeah. Well, just like to know from,
I just want to add that, while we look at these models, let's not forget the job creation that comes out of not just the building of toilets, but the maintaining of them. So the services, the provision of services around maintaining, cleaning, providing is also very critical and a big job creator, and also income generator.
Are we doing enough in that space, Nicholas? How is UNICEF not only evaluating, but I would also want to know from you specifically UNICEF's contribution when it comes to this entire Swachh Bharat mission domain or the movement.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So to bounce back on what the colleagues just said, it's true that there is a huge market. The Indian Sanitation Coalition estimated the sanitation market in India in the range of $30 to $60 billion. Then came the COVID crisis. So the issue of personal hygiene and sanitation is really important. There is money in the public sector. There is a willingness to pay from the household themselves. And we made survey, household invest in sanitation, even the poorest. So maybe one of the missed, because we talk about challenges, one of the missed opportunities of the Swachh Bharat, it's to better use this very dynamic private sector, not the CSR money, as Mr. Khan rightly said, but more about skilling small-scale service providers to work on solid waste, fecal sludge management, behavior change. And there's a great potential here, but the government needs to really work on the regulation, contractual models, business models. And to answer your question, that's what we are trying to do now, together with the Ministry of Jal Shakti and the Ministry of Panchayati Raj. It's really to work on those small-scale contract and models, business models, so that we can use the dynamism of the private sector to step up the sanitation ladder, to go from open defecation free to something greater, bigger, more ambitious. And also, again, COVID is reminding us of the importance of self-hygiene. So perhaps, because we talk about the challenges, talk about other hygienic issues, hand washing with soap. We know that this has the great impact. So now that there will be a focus on behavior change to continue, and that's really good, we need to expand a bit the scope, not just targeting open defecation, but also the habits with regard to personal hygiene, hand washing, also the water usage. There are big issues here in India in terms of water wastage. And so this behavior change has to be a bit broader.
The wastage point, yes. Natural resources,
exactly.
their optimum utilization, and to mitigate the wastage part of it.
And one last challenge to get there, if I may, because we're talking about that.
Yes, please go ahead.
It's the local governance. I've been to many places. You have a strong PRI, you have a strong panchayat, and strong leaders. They will rock and they will deliver results. In other places, it's disorganized, and so it's not even throughout India. So there are lots of pockets of places where the administration and the people are not very well organized, and there is a lot of wastage here. So maybe we need to identify those pockets and focus on that.
Yes, and I'm sure the concerned ministry already is aware of it, Mr. Parmeshwaran. How are we going to iron out that? And the economic disparities and the diversity of our country, all these are part of the challenge book, but then we are working towards it. At the grassroots level, what's your assessment? It's been more than 5 years now.
Yeah, you see, one of the major advantages of the Swachh Bharat mission was that while we laid out a broad framework of behavior change and scaling up, we left the actual details to the states, to the districts, to the villages. So there was a lot of flexibility, because in a country as diverse as India, you cannot have one size that fits all. So every state and almost every district developed its own model of triggering behavior change, coming up with economic opportunities. In some states, school children took the lead. In others, it was school teachers. We have 6 lakh Swachhagrahis, village motivators. Training was done. We had UNICEF in different states partnering. So there was a wide variety, and we left it to local conditions, the local context, for them to develop the most appropriate models for them to scale up.
Okay. What's your assessment of the response that has come in from private players? You also emphasized a lot on the private-public partnership.
The business models are still growing and evolving. And the business model will happen if we are able to get the size and scale, and this would require
Sorry, I lost you guys.
And this would happen if you want to create great business models around sanitation. This will happen if every village of India consciously says that, decides that they would levy a fine on open defecation. And
I think we're doing that already, aren't we?
Not every village of India. I'm saying every village of India must do this.
Okay.
So that, you are able to force everybody to not to do open defecation. Secondly, you need to convert all single pit toilets into twin pit toilets. Then thirdly, I think make a soak pit for any septic tank. And then promote composting for organic waste management, and use organic fertilizer as far as possible in your agriculture. And then eliminate all plastic use. If every village of India does this, then you are going to get the size and scale of demand. One, you will get the supply, and second, you will get the demand. So you will be able to use your waste material from twin pit toilet, have organic compost, and then you will be able to use it for your own agriculture. And around that, then you will, by block by block by block, you would have created economic model by seeing that all communities of India participate in this village by village. But this requires us, you can't do it for small little projects. You need to bring size and scale, and therefore every village of India must be pushed into doing the 6 things. And if you do these 6 things, you would have created an economic model around.
Yes, it's a very interesting point. In fact, Ms. Kidwai, would you like to comment on it? And I'll take Mr. Parmeshwaran also. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So the economic models are clearly what need to be developed. I think one of the easiest spaces is looking at the sewage treatment plants, because it is a business waiting to be done, and one which government or citizens or corporate, whoever is the user of the service, pays for it, both the capital cost and the recurring cost. And flowing from that is also the service of maintaining those plants. So there's a whole service sector that develops around it. A third area where the economic model absolutely exists, and we have in fact given awards from the India Sanitation Coalition and Fecal too, are in the areas of what was manual scavenging, and now there are models which are much more robotic and clean and clear, where these contracts can be given to people who run the cleaning of these systems, which have been quite inhumanly done in the past, despite all the best regulations that the country might have. So for every one of these, there is a model. The model is sometimes a for-profit model, and other times it is a provision of a service for which people pay, where the profit is not usurious, but there is profit to be made. And I think we need to look at the financing of this as well, because unless the money comes in to create these units, and that is often the challenge. So the financing comes both because the user of the service has to pay, and pay a fair price, pay on time, and adhere to contract. And if the bank sees that that contract is sacrosanct and that the model actually holds, then the bank, seeing it as a credible financeable project, goes forward. If it doesn't, the financing doesn't come. And that's where these credit enhancement structures, which you hear talk of now, particularly in the COVID environment as well.
Yes, I was coming to the COVID part.
Yeah.
Yes.
So these are again equally important. And in fact, sanitation and a COVID environment go hand in hand. I mean, studies show that if we had not achieved the level of hygiene we had and enabled people to build their immunity, I think we would have had far more fatalities than we have seen thus far. And continuing on this track of ensuring proper sanitation and systems therein is going to be key for us through the pandemic, and we shouldn't lose sight of that. And that is the business opportunity.
Yeah, I in any way was Parmeshwaran sir coming to that impact of COVID-19 on this entire sanitation mega project nationally that you're implementing. How has this really panned out?
Well, you know, I think that the Swachh Bharat mission has had a huge positive impact, as Naina just mentioned, on COVID-19 in a number of ways. You know, the whole hygiene promotion, hand washing with soap, the provision of individual toilets so people didn't need to go out, you know, during the lockdown. Can you imagine if there hadn't been full coverage of toilets, how people would have had to react? It would have led to huge problems. Apart from that, you know, one of the significant features of the Swachh Bharat mission phase 2, in the construction of community toilets, it's an economic opportunity for the returning migrant workers. So under the Garib Kalyan Rozgar Yojana, which is running in 116 districts in 6 states, one of the major plans is the construction of community toilets, which not only provides an employment opportunity for the returning migrant workers, but also for the floating population, it gives them an opportunity to use toilets, because, you know, you've got large numbers of people coming in and going out. There's an economic opportunity also in the use of cow dung. There's a program called Gobar Dhan, and with biogas, bio-slurry. So huge economic opportunities, and as Amitabh keeps reminding us, that's the best way to sustain this program.
And last comments, final comments, in fact, concluding remarks from all panelists. In fact, I would like to come first to Nicholas. So you're joining us from France all the way. So when you come back, I think it's going to be business as usual. And what's on the agenda? What's on the platter? And your final words, when you look at the distance traveled so far under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, I think the world is already looking at India as a sanitation global leader, but I think we're giving them more lessons.
Yeah. So No, it's not business as usual. When we're in India, we are always busy, and it's really a passion. So, well, we have to deal with COVID. It implies a lot of changes in how we work, how we train people, how the sanitation workers, Swachh must work in order not to spread the disease. And the good part of the Swachh Bharat mission, it didn't only tackle communities, but also schools, Anganwadi centers, and health facilities. And thanks God this happened, because the hygiene conditions there have drastically changed thanks to the Swachh Bharat mission, which now protects the children when the school will reopen and protects the health staff against the disease transmission in those facilities. So moving forward, we'll embrace, UNICEF, if we look at the impact of all this work, it's really good that there are two concurring programs led by the government of India at the highest level. One is the Jal Jeevan mission, looking at water supply, and the other one is Swachh Bharat Phase 2, which are really important. And so we, as UNICEF, we are going to support three areas for which we believe we have an added value. Number one, it's all the work at the community level, behavior change, strengthening local governance. We'll continue to do that. And we will place the emphasis on capacity development at this level. Number two, it's all the work around communication, behavior change, campaigns. And the ministry and the government and the states are really good at it. So we can ease up a bit our support here, because there is a great knowledge already in the hands of the government. And the third one will be around this public-private partnership, trying to work on business models where the public, it remains a public good, but involving the small-scale service providers for fecal sludge management, solid waste, and creating jobs and services. And as someone rightly said, it's all about to put a virtuous cycle. People believe, see the service, and accept to pay an affordable price for it. And this makes the business go on and the service sustain as we have in Europe and in many other countries. Thank you very much.
Okay, stay there. I'm not going to let you go like that. You have to stay with us for a couple of more minutes, sure. But really nice. Ms. Kidwai, your final points, 5 big points. What do you think has really made Swachh Bharat mission the way Prime Minister envisioned it, the implementation of this vision by Mr. Parameshwaran and his team? It's clicked globally.
Well, forget clipping globally, the success in India, it has been just amazing. And we will miss Param when he leaves us. He has no right to be going away as he is. But what a pleasure it has been working with him in the ministry. And I have, in all my years, worked very closely with government. And it is so rare to have government as an open door, in fact, often pushing us as against it being the reverse. So I think that partnership, and I speak for the corporate sector and for the not-for-profit spaces, both of which are well represented at the India Sanitation Coalition, on working closely with government in a way that it is productive and not a waste of time is so critical. And that is the path we must continue on. The second is all the successes we talk about can very easily just be washed away if we drop the ball. And I'm very glad to see that while government cut back on financing, budgetary finances across ministries, including the Ministry for Sanitation and Water, there was this special allocation which Param alluded to from the Finance Commission, which has come our way for sanitation. And as we solve for sanitation, we have to solve for water and make sure that we can do that. A third area is technology, where in technology, we must look at ways where fortunately, the twin pit does not require water for flushing. It does require little water for cleaning, but not for flushing systems as we know it. But we need technologies which save water and provide hygiene with minimal water use, because water remains a very scarce supply. Yes. So seeing those connections are important. And lastly, let's not forget skilling. The whole servicing, repairing, rejigging of toilets, cleaning, and the whole virtuous cycle that is being referred to is very important. And lastly, I would say, let's not forget urban. The urban story is a challenge. It needs a lot of sorting out beyond just community toilets. And in that, working with the municipalities as they exist today is going to be a very key part of it. Whether we help the municipalities raise municipal bonds, and I'm really passionate about helping them fund this, call it sanitation bonds or whatever, on the one hand, and on the other, to actually help them make it an ease of doing business environment by which MSMEs come forward and see the business opportunity for what it is going to be key.
Okay. Yes, Amitabh Kant, sir, your final take.
So we've had a sanitation revolution in India.
Okay.
And we are tremendously proud of it. And the fact that Param has led it from the front, he's brought in a lot of energy and dynamism and vibrancy to this movement. It is also, the vision of the Prime Minister. He's absolutely clear. It wouldn't have been possible but for his foresight and vision and dedication and commitment. I think the challenge now, as I've been saying, is that we need greater level of business models.
Okay.
We need greater levels of private sector participation, and we need this community participation to be sustained on a long-term basis, so that over the next 2 decades, both in rural and urban areas, there's a complete change of mindset, and we get tuned to a new era where India is totally not merely open defecation free, but is able to build out great business models which will sustain it over a long period of time.
So that's a reality that's soon going to be reality. Parmeshwaran sir, your final word?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to echo what Amitabh and Naina and Nicola said. It took the vision of the Prime Minister to make the country realize that if we want to become a 21st century economic superpower, you can't really have people defecating in the open. It doesn't quite match. And
Yes.
that enormous, step taken by the Prime Minister of making that very bold declaration, the risky declaration of saying that the country would become ODF in 5 years, that was phenomenal. I think that triggered the whole thing. And then after that, as Amitabh said, there was a cascading effect with the support. It was a partnership. It was a team effort, whether it's Niti Aayog or Sanitation Coalition or UNICEF or other partners. I think we all came together. But
Yes.
two more important points. I think for the future now, apart from the critical need to sustain it, it's going to be very, very important to involve the youth of the country, in particular school kids. They played a very, very important role as Swachh Bharat ambassadors in making their schools and their villages and influencing their parents and teachers, because they took up the challenge. And I think it's up to the youth of the country to take this program forward. And finally, the new major flagship program is the Jal Jeevan Mission.
Yes.
Providing drinking water in every rural household is also going to make a big difference in sustaining Swachh Bharat, because you still require that little bit of water which Naina referred to clean the toilet. So
Yes.
it's obviously more convenient if every household has
Yes,
got a
sir.
tap. You don't need a lot of water. So I think that program, apart from providing drinking water to all the villages in India, will also help in sustaining the program. And that program is being implemented over the next 4 years. So I think with these thoughts in mind, we are very confident that this program will be sustained in the coming years.
And there's absolutely no doubt why it should not sustain and be another super success. On that very positive note, very, very honored to have all of you on the special edition of DD Dialogue India at 74. So clearly, I think I can say, Parmeshwaran sir, that something which started in 2014 as a national cleanliness campaign became a national goal, top priority, and now it's a full-fledged national movement here to say. We are talking about Swachh Bharat Mission. Thank you very much for joining us, Parmeshwaran Iyer, Secretary, Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation. I also thank Mr. Amitabh Kant, CEO, Niti Aayog. Very, very glad to have Amitabh Kant. I understand, sir, you've been very, very busy throughout the day, but thank you for taking out time for us. Naina Lal Kidwai, very, very delighted, and many thanks for coming to our show on National Broadcaster Doordarshan, and extremely thankful to Nicholas joining us all the way from France, UNICEF India Sanitation Chief. And that's all we have for you in this special episode on this day, on Independence Day, India at 74, DD Dialogue, and me and my entire team. Thank you so much for tuning in. Namaskar.